So this is a new mold I've been wanting to try for a while. I had an idea of what I wanted to do with this, and I want to see if it's going to come out the way I imagine. So I went ahead and poured a little bit more mica powder than I intended because we have a big surface area to cover here. I'm just going to spread it out. I don't like to waste mica powder if I don't have to, so I'm just going to kind of treat it the way you treat extra paint on a palette. I'll come back and use the excess when I need it. Now originally I was thinking, oh, this is another one of the big molds. It ought to be easy peasy. I did not anticipate how hard it is to actually see what I'm doing on this white mold. Normally I would start at the lowest, deepest part of the mold to get the mica powder color that I want first put down. And then I realized the tree is raised on one part, like the bottom part, opposite of where I'm working now, that's the higher part of the mold. On this side over here, it's the deeper part of the mold. And I was like, oh my, I really wish I would have realized that they were opposites before I started, but that's okay. We gotta work with the situation we have. You see digital art go through what they call the ugly phase while they're working on it. This is going to be the ugly phase of painting a mold with mica powder. See, having one part higher and one part lower on the trees didn't mess with my brain at all. I am going to use the excess black powder to paint that tree, but I need to remember my own rule here, which is to start painting the lower half first. So we'll come back to that. First, I want to spread out this silvery white mica powder, because I'm making a kind of tree of life, but it's also a bit of a yin-yang tree of life that I'm going for. So I'm realizing just how nerve-wracking it is not only to clean up these tiny areas, but working with white and black so close together. But that's fine, we can do this. I'm just going to grab a larger alcohol swab and clean some of this up a bit. I'm not going to worry too much about if I get some of the silvery white on this other tree, because it's the higher part of the mold. It's at the top, which means that I can go over it later with a bigger alcohol wipe and remove any excess that I don't want without actually affecting the layer of white that I set up underneath it. So if it seems like I'm not caring very much about where I move this mica powder, as long as it's getting where it needs to go on the lower half, you are correct. There's a reason for it. And it's that making sure we fill in all those small cracks is more important than keeping the top half layer clean, which we can easily clean up in a little bit. And I'm kind of tilting it at an angle here because when it lies flat, I don't know if you guys can see, but I literally cannot see. It just all blends together because it's the same color. It has made painting this thing a little bit of a challenge. And start to clean this up a little bit. You'll notice sometimes I use a bigger alcohol wipe when I want to get and lift color off of more, I guess you could say, areas that demand more precision. I'll either use my Q-tip or I'll even use a tiny paintbrush, because there are some pieces and some parts of a mold where even a Q-tip isn't going to fit. But I'm just lifting some of that white away because even though black is a very strong color, the color that you put down first, even if something else falls on it later, is going to be the dominant color more often than not in your mold. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to grab my excess black mica powder I saved over here and just start spreading that around. And if you're paying attention to the top half, you can see what I mean and where I may have missed a few pieces. It's always going to be the color you put down first that shows through. I'm just going to try to use as much of that excess black pigment that I have before I have to flip it over, which I am going to have to eventually do. I know this looks like a hot mess right now, but I really, really, really hate wasting art materials if I don't have to. So I'm going to try to save as much as this black mica pigment as I can. And bam, it finally got too much for me. Can't look at that anymore. Let's look at the cleaned up version. Okay, that's not too terrible. And I'm gonna have to do a little bit of cleaning up on the trunk of this tree because we did get some black in places we didn't want black to go, but that's all right. That's what alcohol is for. And if you get really frustrated while working on the tiny areas of your resin, you can just mix yourself a cocktail. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. Grab a tiny little brush like I'm doing to get in these leaves where my Q-tip doesn't fit, and you'll be able to clean up the rest of this area. When in doubt, tiny paintbrush alcohol. And because this tree here is indented, I'm making sure that vast majority of this white silver stuff is going to fall into them. Don't want the black taking over on this side. And this is what I mean about this being kind of hard to see when it lays flat. So kind of just raising it a little bit. Yeah, that all blends together when it just lies like that. So I'm hoping that you guys have been able to still see what I'm doing, and it looks like, just checking my camera, that you can. I'm gonna just have to clean up a few areas here on both of the trees, but in hindsight, I'm actually happy and surprised that this is going as smoothly as it is, especially when working with these two colors. And now that I've cleaned that up a bit, I'm just gonna drag a little bit more of the black mica powder over the black tree. It's probably inevitable that I'm not going to get a piece here and a piece there that has a little speck of the silver dust that fell on it, but we're going to do our best to make sure that the dominant color that we want, in the case of this area, the black color, is the one that is coming through the most. And that looks a lot better after we've knocked some of the loose pieces. Good. That appears to have worked. And I'm going to lift a little bit of colors off around the rim because I kind of have a different idea now that I've gotten to this point of what I want to do with the actual edge. I want to actually come around and line the silver side with a little bit of black, and line the black side here with a little bit of silver. I realized halfway through that would be a lot more aesthetically appealing. So that is what we're going to do. That's looking pretty good. That's about the idea I had. I'm really glad I decided to stop partway through and do that. I think that's going to look a lot better than my original plan. And now we pour. Now, rather than getting out a Dremel or a drill or something, I kind of had a different idea for what I wanted to do to make a way to hang it on the wall. And what I did was I got a silicone tube that I just cut. I'm just plunking it in there to see if it's going to hopefully do what I want it to do. And let's see. Moment of truth. It's kind of stuck. Okay, got it. Oh, impressive. That actually did a lot better than I thought it would do. Just a simple little silicone tube I had there. Now let's kind of pull this out. Oh, nice, nice. Again, I'm really glad I decided to do the edges the way I did, especially since I'm looking at it now. I'm gonna have to sand and clean up the hole a little bit, but on the whole, it's still, putting that tube there took a lot of work out for me.